Musical Talk, the UK's independent musical theatre podcast. Hello and welcome to another edition of Musical Talk. I'm Thos and I do hope you're listening to this programme at 12:59 because it gives us that one-to-one feeling. And that is a variation of a joke from the 2015 Edinburgh Festival Fringe told by Tom Ward. And, of course, it's a very handy way of sliding into the fact that the Edinburgh Festival Fringe is now upon us, running from the 2nd of August to the 26th of August in and around Edinburgh, one of the great cities of this world. It is not just the world's largest arts festival, it is, and I quote, the world's greatest platform for creative freedom. And whilst that's quite the statement, I think it's also true. The Edinburgh Festival Fringe has something for everyone if you like any kind of performance whatsoever. But we at Musical Talk are particularly delighted, of course, that there's always a large array of musical theatre offerings. Sometimes revivals of well-known shows. I see that Sweet Charity is up this year, as is Rent. And a whole host of shows which are brand new. And it's new writing I always find most exciting. And, as usual, Musical Talk will be covering what it can of the musical offerings at this year's Fringe. And you won't just be hearing from me. Other stars from the constellation that makes up Musical Talk include Colin Malloy, Mike Shapiro, and an old friend of this programme, David Kingsmill. But although Musical Talk has covered the Edinburgh Festival Fringe in depth and in detail since 2006, which is quite some time, you can never truly get across the sense of excitement, creativity, vibrancy, brio. There are so many words for it, but none of them quite capture what it is that makes Edinburgh so special every year. But it is a recognised phenomenon that there is something Edinburgh-y, that must be the adjective I suppose in the end, about the whole experience. Whether you're just a punter, somebody visiting to see some shows, or whether you're somebody putting on a show or involved in a show, or somebody like me, a parasite on the body creative, a mere reviewer. There is something for everyone at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, and everyone who goes finds something wonderful, not only to enjoy on stage in some way, but also in the atmosphere. But it's taken one man to distill that into a show which is about the Edinburgh Festival Fringe experience in its own right. Now, sometimes popular culture can be accused of eating itself, but sometimes popular culture is very good at recognising what makes popular culture so popular. What a long sentence, and what a lot of P's. The people with microphone technique, you'll be aware of the dangers of plosives, and that last sentence was quite the obstacle course. But I digress, as you know. So, bringing us back on course, today we're going to be talking to the very wonderful, very talented Patrick Stockbridge, who had, I think, the simply genius idea of writing a musical about the Edinburgh Fringe experience, called, get this, Ed Fringe the Musical. And so, although this episode was recorded last year for a show that was on at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe last year, I've deliberately kept it over as a warm-up to this year's Edinburgh Festival Fringe to help get you in the mood, whether you're able to attend or not. But if you can't make it to Edinburgh this year, do listen to Musical Talk over the next few weeks and we'll try and give you a flavour of what it was you missed. And if you can make it, so much the better. So, in a minute, we'll be hearing a conversation I had with the lovely Patrick Stockbridge about Ed Fringe the Musical, which touches on so many of the aspects that you experience when you come to the Fringe. But before that, here's a song about one of the main ones. It is simply impossible to come to the Edinburgh Festival Fringe and not engage with the performers, because they will be trying to leaflet you or persuade you to go to their shows or talk to you or engage with you. It's one of the joys of being an audience member in Edinburgh, walking down the Royal Mile and just window shopping what's on offer. So here's a song called Come to My Show.
Yo, 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 what is up, Edinburgh?
Let me tell you a little story.
Chemical High with the Edinburgh crew.
Here we go, here we go,
Here we go.
Here we go. Woo!
a show, no, come to my show. There ain't no other mother-loving place you can go. For the rest of the year, see the sights, ride my flow. But your life will be complete if you come to my show. Got my flyers in hand, got a spiel prepared. With my engaging eyes, I catch them unawares. Then out of the blue, shout a time in someone's face. 3:45 on Bristow Place.
What wares do you sell, I pray, do tell?
Such flowery words must be a thesp as well.
It's a modern adaptation of a Homer classic set in post-apocalyptic Spain. Most of it, we wrap it.
The man swaps flyers and returns to his cast. A version of the Odyssey.
He's playing the mast.
And the odds are pretty low that we'll try to attend. But one flyer down, move on, start again. Come see a show, no, come to my show. Ignore my doppelgangers all stood in a row. Whip out your wallet and splash down the dough, as we'll possibly break even if you come to my show.
Tell me about it.
Okay, a middle-aged couple wearing chinos and checks, with a map in one hand and a camera round their necks. Dazed and confused, they sift through the hordes. It is clear that these imposters have never trod the boards. Accumulating flyers like flies to a turd. With smiles so sweet they hang on to each word. They say they've got plans to see a thing at the castle, with fireworks and cannonballs. What sort of arsehole would produce that?
It clicks.
What can you do when the lovable Americans are here for the tattoo? You bid them farewell and safe trip in UK, and return to the grind of promoting your play.
It's rhyming dictionary time.
It's always what time and where, and I'll try to be there. But the guys I ensnare seem to not really care. But I shouldn't despair, trust my charisma and flair. With a magnetic stare, I'll keep the public aware. But the mile is unfair, so let your melodies blare. Or chain yourself to a chair, or keep birds in your hair, or leave your breasts bare. Coat yourself in Gruyere, be as extreme as you dare, and the better you'll fare. But we all speak hot air, and a purchase is rare. So don't rip and don't tear, give a flyer, sell a pair. Come see a show, no, come to my show.
Come on, everybody, put your hands in the air.
Come see a show, no, come to my show.
Even if you've just got one hand.
Come see a show, no, come to my show.
That's it, look, that one-handed person is doing an excellent job.
Come see a show, no, come to my show.
Oh, we got somebody throwing up over here.
Mic drop.
Hello, I'm Patrick Stockbridge, and I'm up in Edinburgh this year doing Fringe the Musical revue, which is a show that I am written, composed and produced, and we're having a lot of fun so far.
Splendid. Now, Fringe the revue feels like a show that should have been and has been done thousands of times before, but I've been coming up to Edinburgh for 12 years and I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. It's like the most obvious idea, perfectly done. So, how did you get the idea, and were you ever worried that perhaps you might be treading on pre-trodden paths?
I mean, having chatted to people at the festival so far, it's lots of people like, that is a good idea, we discussed that the other day. I mean, that would have been a really good idea, so I got it first.
Yeah.
But I think that has been done before in many instances, but maybe not in full musical form. And again, it comes from a place of kind of having done quite a few festivals, and you kind of had to have the knowledge to back up writing a show like that. So hopefully we're doing it some justice as an evaluation of the festival.
I can assure you have. The show itself is highly enjoyable. How would you describe it? You've just used the word musical. I would call it a revue in the old-fashioned sense of revue. I don't mean it's old-fashioned, it's a very contemporary show, but revue as in, you know, a small team of people performing, almost moving on, you know, between sketch and song without there being a driving narrative, is for me a revue. R-E-V-U-E.
I mean, we literally looked up the definition of review yesterday because we were like, is it still a review? I mean, since we did the previews in London and over the month, it's developing even now because it's the first outing of it. But yeah, I mean, originally it was a selection of songs, which obviously it's my forte, it's I like doing best, and skits and observations, which all mixed together to give a kind of complete picture of the festival. But as we developed, certain narrative paths have kind of started to emerge, and again, when we maybe move forward with the show into future years, we actually want to develop these further because we realise that, hey, people like a story during a show, and it makes it just a bit more mature as a performance as well. And I think we all enjoy doing the little narrative bits, you know, the relationships between people. And
well, there are already links in it, aren't there? Because one or two of the jokes, and indeed one or two of the songs, make reference to previous jokes and songs. So you've already got little sort of leaping off points and recognition points and sort of trapdoor jokes, which sort of, you know, you fall into later on, as it were. So that's, you know, so it's not simply skit A, song B, skit C, whatever. It is cohesive in that sense, but it does have that slightly, I think, to its benefit, episodic feel. I really like the fact that actually one of the performers will come out and say, you know, and as we all know, X, Y, and Z happen. days, and then it just sort of sets it up. And you know that is that's a form of stagecraft which is quite rare these days, but it's lovely to see.
Again, it's kind of, it comes from also the way it was written, and the fact that I hadn't chosen the order to the songs until a bit later on in the process, and you're choosing, right, I'm going to write a song about Arthur's Seat, because the big mountain in Edinburgh, so you write that song, and then you maybe think, I need a song about flyering, because exactly. And so the way it was written was very episodic, but then obviously you want to kind of make it as natural feeling as a through, and also it's choosing your kind of chronological order, as in kind of during the month we like to think about starting with all the people you see at the festival and the things to do with flyering, and as you kind of go through the month you get these kind of relationships developing, and like I say, climbing Arthur's Seat's like the final triumph thing to do before you finish the month. So yeah, it was trying to kind of picture your whole Edinburgh experience finishing on the end of August exhausted. And
well, you touched one of the questions I was going to ask, which is actually how do you draw the profile of the piece, particularly in a review where you can shuffle the deck slightly. I mean, you're right, the journey you've described is exactly I saw the show and I loved the show, and I thought it was witty throughout, and that's wonderful, melodic too, but witty, and I came out after very happy, and I thought to myself, yes, but I've seen that sense we all have, whether we come here as a performer or whether we come here as an audience member or a punter or a reviewer or whatever we're here as, whoever comes, you start off excited and full of the beans, and then you get into the routine of whatever it is you're doing, whether you're seeing shows or performing shows, and then you get tired, and not jaded necessarily, but there is a kind of sort of exhaustion that hits. I don't mind telling you I'm leaving tomorrow, so I'm at that stage.
We've still got another 11 days, so we're ploughing on. But I mean,
half a seat's a week away.
Yeah, exactly. We can make it to that'd be brilliant. But Charlotte, the director, Charlotte Peters, has had a lot to do with kind of editing the script and working together, and basically what we needed to do, which what we realised quite early on, is that I've done 6 Fringes before playing piano, and we realised that the show has got to obviously appeal to people who are experienced with the Fringe, but also if you've just rocked up on the first day and you see, Ed Fringe the Musical Revue, that sounds like something that'd be really nice. We need to make sure those people are accommodated, because they can, if it's just a bunch of in-jokes and things like that, it's not going to work. So that's why it starts with a kind of August is here, and you're like talking about the city a little bit, and there's a song called 50-50 Chance of Rain, because I mean, like the last few days especially have been very apt for that song. And again, these are
you might have got the statistics wrong.
Well, again, it's August apparently is 52% chance of rain in Edinburgh. I had to do a lot of research for that song, sitting there googling. But again, there's
recognition in the audience when they hear these songs, isn't it? Because as you say, even if you haven't got the experience, if it's your first Edinburgh, you'll still know that.
Yeah, so again, you can start with the kind of basics, and obviously as we progress through, hopefully people are a bit more invested in kind of the characters and things like that, but you start maybe getting a little bit more niche with your references. But again, there's songs about like how expensive all the drinks are and things like that, and so it's just keeping people interested who maybe don't have the performance or kind of festival experience before, and then they'll go out and then kind of discover the things over the next few days. I guess that's
the moment.
Yeah, so you're like, that's what I saw in that song. And again, Asha, Cornelia Kluwer, who's also in a show called Honey's Happening at the Fringe, so she's doing 2 shows, but this is her first festival. So we had 2 of them have done lots of festivals before, and we found her through Sarah Louise Young, who's one of the Showstoppers people.
We all know Sarah Louise,
again, like a Fringe veteran. She came to watch the first night. She was like, "You've written a show for me." I was like, again, but Asha, this is her first festival, so she's literally learnt the show, come up here, and like she spends all day going, "That's in the show. That's in the show."
So for her, it's a primer.
Yeah, and discovering the truth in the writing, I guess. But
have any of the songs actually changed order?
Changed order, not since the previews particularly. Again, when we look to develop it maybe next year, have a bit of a fiddle, we've had a chat already, it might change a little bit. It's just kind of, it's been a very development process, and the thing was doing previews in London, it was great because it's just to check that it's vaguely funny for you, but also funny. But you can't, with the show again, it's life expectancy is very short. It could only be done in Edinburgh, and you can't really truly try it out anywhere except Edinburgh during the festival, because it's a very specific, it's about Edinburgh, and so like we're basically learning on the job what's working, and then we'll take it forward from there. So it's a very difficult thing to develop outside of this kind of bubble, but we do our best.
So forgive me, you are the man behind the show. It was your idea, and you've written the score. You were also responsible for the script.
I'm also responsible for the script. I mean, basically, the story of the show, how it came about. I wrote a show called January, the Musical Revue, which we've done for 2 years for short runs in London. And basically, January is a very similar ilk. We basically look at all the aspects of January: people going on diets, people having no money, people breaking up,
the starkness of a new year.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm writing satirical comedy songs about that with a kind of MC character character and the kind of man and woman character acting out all these scenarios that happen. And we did that for 2 years, and the scriptwriter for that was a guy called Alexander Parker, who's actually one of the producers at Celador now. But he's so he's kind of involved in that, and kind of, so it's still my baby, but he kind of got involved, and then he couldn't be involved in this project, and I was like, actually, at least in my voice, the scripty bits will kind of be cohesive with the songs. I mean, again, like, we're looking forward. We've had some input from a few script writers for this one. I think in future we might get another script writer. But that was my main fear and challenge, I guess, from a perspective of a composer. I like writing the songs, and I quite like writing lyrics. And then you're suddenly like, script? There's no musical backing. Well, it's very exposing, and you realise the jokes that hit and the jokes that don't, and you realise that actually in a musical comedy show, there's a very different way of presenting a joke, and you can get laughs for different things, and again, you can literally sing nothing, no words, but you can sing a really interesting chord at the right time, and people are like, really love it. So
there are mechanistic things behind making a joke land, aren't there? And particularly with music. As Kit Hesketh-Harvey says that if you can make the lyric, a comedy punchline lyric, hit the right piece of music at the right moment, you get a triple whammy, which sort of escalates. It's an accumulator of comedy, if you like.
It's basically cheating, isn't it? I mean, we put a big but again, you can have a big moment of everyone's feeling uplifted by the music to start with, and then if you then hit the joke at the right time, what I've learned actually over writing more comedy songs is that it's leaving the gaps for the laughter, because if you write so many lyrics that you're hoping that the laughter's there, obviously, then if the lyrics keep on going, then there's no room for the audience to express how they felt about that moment.
That's exactly right, yes. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, because once again, that's a mechanistic thing that people don't think about, so you have to sort of have some sense and flexibility. When did you have the idea?
For the Fringe show, so I said after this January musical review, we did. So
it was early this year.
So January, we did 2 performances, two runs, one in 2016 and one in 2017. After the first one of that, basically people said, this is a really good Edinburgh show, except it's all about January.
Yes.
So obviously you cannot do it in Edinburgh, being in August. And I was like, okay, I'll take something from that, and thought, yeah, I like the format of the show. It's nice, it's kind of small and manageable and enjoyable to play, and I like to play the piano in it as well. So I just thought I'd write a completely new show, and I wrote most of the show just before the festival last year, knowing that I wouldn't be able to produce it that year. But then we had people around call-in favours, people around trying songs out, and then you could get all the kind of excitement of the festival on Twitter and Facebook, and I popped up for a couple of days last year just to check that nothing had changed too drastically.
Well, but you do know it from your own experience on many occasions.
I do, but it's an ever-changing beast, and I mean, like, the fundamentals are still there. But you come back each year and you're like, oh, that's a new bar, that's a new venue, that's now owned by that people.
Or there's 200% more conjurers this year.
Yeah, there was a lot of magicians this year. So it's always changing, and you kind of, again, like, I have particular memories. My first Fringe was 8 years ago. I've done 5 or 6. It's my 6th since then. But you have certain memories of that particular year that thing happened. Yeah. So it's just checking it's still relevant to people who are up here now.
So how did you gather your material? Because actually, as you say, there's so much. I mean, it's interesting you sort of spot testing it by popping up and talking to other people, but there must have been things you think, I'd like to do this, but actually I can't fit it, or you got up here and you suddenly thought, oh no, I haven't done the song about blah.
Again, I think the haven't done the song about blah could be relevant to so many. There's so many more songs that you could fit in, and again, if you swap in and out, I mean, it's gonna if it continues, it will have to change with the festival anyway, and you do realise certain things. You have popped out. I can't think of any just coming to my mind, but
well, I can tell you I'm sure everyone's going to give you ideas all the time, or just make comments. But the last few years, it's real pop will eat itself, which is that now you've got comedians who don't actually come up and do shows; they just interview other comedians. It just becomes a whole series of chat shows about mates and mates, and you think, yes, that's fine, but it's not actually about it. There's nothing there.
It's not actually any substance.
It's all Easter egg. It looks lovely on the outside. It's absolutely hollow. I'm not suggesting that as an idea, but I'm saying that seems something that's developed in the years I've been coming up. That's becoming more and more prevalent.
It's cheaper to do. Get the comedians that are already up here.
No research.
And it's a very expensive place during the festival to do things, and it's kind of get your friends in to do lots of things. Again, the way I've managed to produce this run is by using people that I've worked with before, and who are also all in other musical. Well, Emily Jane Kerr, she's in Shakespeare for Breakfast, which is a very long-running show at C venues. That's got some musical bits in it. And James Dangerfield, who is the other one I haven't mentioned, he's doing a Buster Keaton show called When You Fall Down at Pleasance Courtyard. And again, I went to watch that the other day. It's brilliant. It's very different than our show.
Quite.
But you're getting people on the grapevine who you've heard of, and we fortunately all got together and liked each other and had a brilliant time developing the show. So it is calling in those favours to get it off the ground, and in order to kind of showcase what it can be.
So that's interesting then. In terms of getting the performers, did you ever in your head always think, well, it was going to be one chap and two lasses, or is it just that then did you write the songs to, or did you? Which, how what's the order of these things happening?
I think in some ways it doesn't matter, but I always, again, for the January show and for this, I always like the idea of having a female MC character who basically leads the audience through the show. I mean, like, again, not that I'm talking about kind of gender casting particularly, but why shouldn't the MC be female? There's like absolutely no reason. Why not? I mean, again, you could have three. Someone suggested, Charlotte, I think, suggested 3 women at one point. I was like, it's just quite nice to have a male balance, just to kind of even out, even from an appearance point of view, having. But it
gives you some symmetry.
Yes, exactly. But I always had the female kind of lead person who kind of leads you through the show. And I don't think it really matters as long as people are represented. I think that's what we're kind of working on, thinking about next year as well, because it's such a diverse festival and you want people to be represented and again, because they're my friends who are effectively in the cast, it's maybe less representation than it might be, but in the future that's something that we're definitely thinking about. So,
can I also compliment you on the beautiful changes of pace in the piece? There's even the songs, well, there's a particular song about sort of lazing in the meadows, which, if you like, is a draw breath song. It's a lovely song in its own right. It does have some lighter comments, there's observations about some of the sillier things that goes on there, but actually at heart it's a sincere song. And actually it's beautifully placed in the sort of profile of the piece to give people that chance to, right, we've had a lot of fun, we've had these observations. Now, actually, but isn't there a lot to love in Edinburgh which isn't even Fringe related? And it just gives you a calming moment. It's an elegiac moment almost, and then you move on back to the pace and back up again to...
I think The Meadows is possibly a kind of unknown. I didn't expect it to be a kind of hit, and lots of people, especially people who are local, have really enjoyed. They was like, yes, I know that is kind of my experience of the Meadows. It's a break from the festival. It's a lovely place to be when it's sunny. He says, looking at the rain outside.
It's a moist place to be at the moment.
But also, some very rude and crude things happen in the Meadows late at night. And I have also played mini golf there. And I may have had one too many drinks and had to do things in that part before. But it's
no name, no pack.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't possibly say. Yeah, people who are local and people who've been here lots of times before and feel that kind of relaxed kind of break from the festival element about the Meadows, and that's been a really nice song. It's a very jazzy song as well. I like writing a nice little jazz standard, have a little break from all the pumping other tunes. So,
well, let's talk about the score because actually it's very varied. In fact, in a conversation we had off the record, you said in a way it's a showcase, which it is. It shows your versatility tremendously, I think, lyrically and melodically. How do you match a song to an idea? Does it come naturally, or do you think actually? Do you sometimes say, well, actually, this is clearly going to be this kind of song, or a tune, or melody, or rhythm? Or do you sometimes say, actually, no, I'm going to do something a bit strange here? You would suggest this, and then you do something completely different. Do you work against the material or with the material? This is an open question.
I think in this sort of context, I think maybe the first few songs I wrote, I kind of chose a style that I felt usually working against the material, maybe a little bit. So we've got the 50-50 Chance of Rain song, which is something about rain, but it's a very upbeat Latin American number, which get your maracas out, or get your umbrellas out in our case.
But it's got that lovely ending as well, hasn't it? There's sustained, and comparing it to other places in the world which are hot.
Yes.
Which sort of that music sort of suggests. So you've done that. You've counterpointed it.
Yeah, it's complete. And then we've got kind of Arthur's Seat, which is kind of a bit of a gospel-y number. And again, I was imagining kind of lots of people singing and kind of marching and things like that. But then it becomes about marching up a hill when you're hungover. So it's
a physical aspiration. Yeah. And one aspires to climb the hill, but of course that also does that. You're quite right. About life improvement through religion, if that's your bag, and gospel music tends to reflect that. So you're right. There are some nice plays there.
But then other things, I guess, once you've written a few songs and you want to keep it mixed up and eclectic, so you're kind of like, all right, what styles haven't we maybe explored yet? There's a kind of slightly more traditional English song about kind of how expensive everything is, called A Northerner's Lament. That's technically what it's called. But again, that's kind of quite English folk songy, which completely breaks out from what you've just had, which is a Hamilton-style rap about firing. So it's just keeping the audience on their toes. And then we don't have a chance to get bored. They don't have a chance to get bored. It's keeping it unexpected. I like writing pastiche. I think musical theatre is a very complicated genre because everyone says, I write original new musical theatre, and I'm like, nothing particularly is original. It's just where you take your influences from. And I think I like lots of different types of music, so I try and take my influences from as many places as possible. And that is the joy of the review format as well, is that you don't feel that you necessarily have to have one voice throughout, whereas if you're writing a particular show about a particular story, you feel that maybe I may should keep that kind of instrumentation or keep that colour throughout, whereas this can kind of zoom from side to side.
Turns on a sixpence, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And if you don't, it's like any good sketch show actually. If you don't like this sketch, you might like the next, or you will like the one after that, and same with the songs. It's what doesn't hit, there'll always be something else. Although I think you've got a tremendously high success rate. I can't, in my head, remember any particular duffers. You'll be pleased to know.
I think generally any kind of bits we kind of edited and cut them down to, it's getting the right pace again, as you were saying earlier, and it's being like, all right, this song is 2.5 minutes long, which in a show of an hour is kind of a reasonable length. Is that going to keep people sustained throughout that song? Because basically, if you have any 60-minute show, as everyone at the Fringe knows, it has to be the right pace throughout. And it's strange actually with the script bits this year. Again, the script bits can definitely be improved. It's not necessarily my bag, but the songs are quite high energy and intense, and sometimes the script bits are there to give the audience a little respite from the dance and the singing and the performing. Yeah, so they can actually have a little moment to process what they've just taken in before continuing on. So, yeah, it's been.
Now, you talk about high energy, and I think that's a very good way of describing it. There's choreography too, isn't there?
There is choreography, again, all done by Charlotte Peters, who, again, we've worked together on a few smaller projects in London, but she's resident director on Warhorse UK Tour, and has just been director on Birdsong UK Tour, which is going out to UK and America. And she managed to squeeze me in to do work with us three on my kind of relatively low budget and tight time. Yes. But again, it's okay for her. We've had a lovely time, and it's just such a different ball game. First of all, she's been to the Fringe a few times to different shows, but it's taking our kind of, having moved on maybe in our careers elsewhere, taking all those experiences and putting them into a smaller scale show to make it the absolute best it can be. And again, I wasn't sure about what she was going to do for choreography, and she's very much enjoyed. I was like, she's whipping out choreography. That's excellent. And again, it's kind of. It's still in development. Again, the people I've said again and lots of times, but they take into the choreography very well. And again, if you did it on a bigger scale, then you could have more time to spend on doing more choreography. I mean, I like the fact that I get to feature in the show on stage. Again, we've got two people in our band, me and a drummer called Will Shaw, who's also playing for Buried Musical up here. So basically I stole him, I borrowed him, let's use the right word, to come and play with our show as well. But we like the fact that we're on stage, and I think as the show progresses, you could have even more interaction between the cast and the band, and it becomes a more cohesive piece with the movement and everything. So,
but you were saying, you can expand it, and you could go to bigger venues and things like that. But of course, the great thing about revue, and this revue in particular, is intimacy. You connect with an audience. Connection is what is going to make it work. If you put it in the Palladium or the Assembly Hall here, you wouldn't get the response, would you? Because it would be lost, it would be drowned, it would be swamped by a space. When in fact, actually, it's. You don't want to be in the smallest space, but you want to make sure you never quite take it too far, so you lose that connection with the audience. Did that factor in on your choice of venue? Because I think your choice of venue is pretty good.
Well, again, I wanted an even smaller space, really, for a first outing, because I was like, it's nice to feel that you might fill it or sell out. Yeah. So I'd asked for a 60-seat, and then C Venues bumped us up to C2, which is up near the castle. It's about 140 seats altogether.
So
but again,
Columbus by the castle.
Yeah, Columbus by the castle, 9:25. Be there. But yeah, it's on three sides. So again, we've been basically filling out 60 seats, which is brilliant, but that's like one side, so you can still feel that intimacy, ignoring the fact that there's empty seats on the side. Whereas other venues, when it's a long, thin venue, maybe you lose it. If you're at the back of the room, you're not going to feel that connection to the performers. So it's been a lovely venue to work at, and I do feel that we feel very close to the audience, and it's basically sharing experiences with them. They're part of the show as much, there's not too much kind of audience reaction as such, but they need to feel that they've done the things that we're talking about in the show to kind of enjoy it, I guess, to its maximum.
I'm going to ask what always seems a very blunt, rather dull question, but actually sometimes it can be quite instructive. Do you have a favourite song or a favourite piece of the show? I'm asking you to, tell me what you like best about your own work. I am aware of this, or does it change?
I think it does, and it's changed since we got to Edinburgh, I think, because you see the reactions to things are very different than when you wrote them. Again, the kind of, of the moment, the Hamilton-style rap about flying.
It's in.
It's in, and I also enjoyed the lyrics that I managed to whip up for that. But so that's always a fun one to do as a performer. But then there's a song called Fringe Crush. So Fringe Crush, basically, I met my girlfriend at C Venues 4 years ago during the festival, and we're still together. She's teching the show, which is, it's always a sort of sign things are going well.
I hope that wasn't the reason you got together.
Well, so the story, very quickly of the story we got together, basically, I was playing piano for a lady called Lynn Ruth Miller, who's let's say an elderly cabaret singer who, for a show called Not Dead Yet, she's her self-deprecating humour. But my girlfriend Rachel ended up teching for that show, and then we met on that show, and we're still together now, living together. So,
which was the venue?
We were at C Nova that time. So
you always have warm memories.
Yeah, well, C Venues. Yeah, I mean, I've done shows at Pleasance, I've done shows at Space and Underbelly, but C Venues have some sort of happy memories. But again, coming from that song, again, it's in a slightly different context in the show. I mean, I couldn't possibly spoil their joke, but yeah, it's just that song. I'm like, yeah, this is all true.
Yeah.
And
you see it all over.
And yeah, and people are kind of getting together, and I mean, it's a big pool of people, and you meet new people, and it's exciting things, and everyone seems to really kind of feel for that song. Even if it's just not from a context of being a performer, just as kind of like a nice kind of love song out of the context of the rest of the show. So,
and without ruining anything, there is a payoff later on as well, isn't there? Or rather, a development. So
yes,
there's a further connection to that song which comes up, which is one of those lovely little sort of connecting points throughout the piece, which is rather charming. So that's one of your favourites. That's because it's obviously got a sort of nostalgic value, or it means something to you in that sense.
Completely. And again, The Meadows is a nice jazz stand. I like that kind of music for that bit. It's what style you feel on the day. There's a song called Word of Mouth at the end of the show, which is a kind of 12/8 shuffles, bit Stevie Wonder. I actually wrote that with my drummer that we had in London in mind, because he just loves Isn't She Lovely, the song by Stevie Wonder. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to write a song that sounds a bit like Isn't She Lovely, and but yeah, I just enjoy playing it, and everyone enjoys clapping along. Again, we've got some clapping along going on, which is excellent. So
it keeps the energy up as well, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
And helps build to some kind of sort of
and it makes them realise also how important word of mouth is during a festival like this, and kind of like, yeah, we're telling you all the information, because really, if you tell your friends and they come along, then it's the show will escalate, and we'll sell more tickets and have a more enjoyable month. So.
Now let's talk about your presence on stage, because it isn't ostensibly about you. It is the three performers who carry the weight of the performance. Obviously, you and Will, I think you said,
yes, Will, the drummer,
obviously carry the weight of the songs. But you are you're a joy to watch, actually, because you seem to be enjoying yourself so much. I don't know I hope that's sincere.
No, it's generally.
There is this sort of gleaming madman enjoying himself at the back of the stage, if you don't mind me saying, sort of and you do have a few lines, and you wear a cape. At one stage, I think you represent the Underbelly.
I get to do my.
Because there was a song about the way there are several speech marks sorting houses, if you like, venues across the city.
And I realised
some are bigger than others.
Yes, the big four. I realised that I only had a cast of 3, so that was always going to be a little bit of an issue. So I ended up having to cast myself as one of the big 4. But yeah, I guess from our presence on stage point of view, I always enjoy, when I'm watching a show as well, seeing the band. I feel disappointed there's quite a few musicals at the Fringe this year where, because of logistical issues and stuff, the band's are hidden away. Especially they've got like 5 or 6 people who are really talented musicians you can't see, and it's really enjoyable to see the band. And then from a point of performing it, I genuinely am enjoying like watching the cast, watching the audience, playing the music, and I think it's important to kind of have that interaction between the cast and the band, especially when it's a small band. We haven't got a 20-piece with a conductor, so it's we are just as much.
It's a vivacious band, though. You and Will are vivacious. No, vivacious to look at, vivacious in your performance as well. It fills the room.
I kind of, and also, I mean, I've done various MD and playing piano for things, and I did Blood Brothers UK tour for a year. Playing as assistant MD on that, so playing a lot in pits, and I got to play some really big venue. Last time I was in Edinburgh, I was playing the Playhouse, and I was like, really? I've made it. But again, it's such a different experience because you're in a dark pit, and I mean, Blood Brothers is a great show, and the people on it were great, and I enjoy playing with the musicians. But you're all plugged into your headphones in like kind of this huge pit with like 6 or 7 of you, and I just like the interaction. Being on stage and working with people, whether
it's like coming out of a submarine.
Yeah, well, it's the same in rehearsals. That's the joy of MDing in the rehearsals, especially on something new and creative. It's that you have that interaction with the cast and the director and the choreographer, and it's a kind of a team effort. Whereas when you're in the pit, you're very separate from the backstage team and the actors, and it doesn't. That's how big scale professional theatre works. But it's a breath of fresh air to be able to kind of have a proper interaction in the show. So.
So what has the audience told you about Ed Fringe the Musical? By which I don't mean necessarily coming up to you after and saying, I like song X. I'm talking about from their reactions. Because an audience is different every day. Are you seeing that?
We have had people literally come up to us at the end saying that was brilliant, which is amazing, excellent, especially when we're trying to do our 10-minute get out at the end of the show, zooming over, as is Edinburgh. But we've had some lovely comments online, and people. I mean, obviously the reaction, you can feel people are laughing, enjoying the show, but you just get different audiences every night. The ideal audience is a mix of people who are performing, people who are locals, and people who are visiting the festival, because they probably all kind of cover all bases. Some of the jokes are maybe tailored slightly more towards the performer, as you know, obviously I am myself. But what my favourite thing about the festival has been locals really enjoying it, because obviously locals are a big part of the kind of audience here, which you forget, because you're trying to flyer other people who are doing shows, and you realise that the locals here, they come and watch shows every year. Some of them have lived here for like 50 years. They've seen the Fringe all the way from the beginning to where it is now, and they're like saying, yes, that's what it is. Oh, it's brilliant. I'm going to tell my friends. And I'm like, yeah, I did not expect that when I was writing the show, that it would appeal to the locals. I hoped it didn't offend them, obviously, but from a kind of an audience point of view, they've been brilliant. And again, it's a kind of an older audience than I expected. We're getting kind of companies who are like kind of maybe late teens to late 20s, and then you get like 50 to 70-year-olds, and I'm like, how did I manage to do this? I managed to write a show, but it's not too off-putting. There's nothing's too offensive in the show. There's a little innuendo, but it's nothing too kind of.
It's not bawdy, but it is fun.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and. So yeah, it's been really nice to appeal to a different crowd than maybe a lot of things I've done before as well. So,
have there been any jokes which you hadn't realised were there, which the audience have let you know? Because the audiences are the final judge, and sometimes they see things and hear things and respond to things which you think, hang on a minute, that was just a bridging dialogue or something like that. Have you had anything that surprised you?
Maybe not particularly, but like, there was a few moments of, say, at the end, we're just having our little roundup about the Fringe experience, and you're saying, so you'll see more shows than you've ever seen before, some of the best and worst theatre, and that always gets a really big laugh, because obviously the Fringe is one of those places where you can see some not particularly great pieces of theatre, and some people might have literally come from a show just before that they thought sounded good on paper, and then they went to see it and it might have been not great. So, but it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be there. Is that it's a love letter to the Fringe, and
it is the Edinburgh experience.
That's the Edinburgh experience. But yeah, there's a few moments when certain audience members really and especially the song about how expensive everything is. I wrote that I thought it was a bit of a kind of a laugh, really, writing that song, because I thought, it's a kind of a northern man, don't want to stereotype anything, but he was just talking about how much things cost during the festival. But obviously everyone's going through that, whether you're a performer or it's like, I don't want to spend £6 on a pint. That's ridiculous. I don't live in London. So
I was going to say, in a way, you have to make him a sort of a northern person, because actually if you made him a Londoner, it wouldn't be quite so stark. I live in London, and the prices in Edinburgh are expensive during the festival, and I know that, but I can't complain too much, because I live in an inflated city.
Exactly, it's not that different. There's a line in the song that goes, we're not in London now, which was great when we did the previews in London, when everyone was like, we are, and we have just spent £6 on a pint in this place. So I think those kind of jokes where you kind of wrote the song hoping that people would finding it funny, but actually you realise those are the ones that really kind of resonate a lot with everyone who's attending the festival, rather than just people who know the festival well. It's been lots of enjoyable to see what people find funny, I think.
So, taking us back to the score, if I may, have there been points when, because there are sort of sketches as well as songs, it's not all songs, although it's a very song-full review, have there been things that might have changed from being songs to sketches, or sketches to songs, or actually has everything more or less, it sounds to me as though it's actually, although it's developed and tweaked and honed, and it sounds to me like your original, the thing you envisaged has been more or less intact.
Yeah, it's fairly, again, that's partly to do with kind of development time. Again, maybe if we had a bit longer towards next year, we might fiddle things a little bit. I guess if you compared to, from my point of view, as someone who writes songs rather than sketches, a song takes a lot longer to, first of all, compose, then write down the music, then teach to a cast. So from a point of view of like trying out a song, it takes like a good few days to just process that. Whereas a sketch, if you write a sketch, so even if you took a whole day on writing a sketch, it's written down, they can read it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
It lands quicker, doesn't it?
It lands quicker. Again, I've
terms.
learned from my own experience. Some of my sketch writing isn't amazing, but you can definitely try out things like that a lot quicker. I think the songs, I wanted to choose the main things, the main kind of points of the Fringe, and then fill it in with the kind of extra ideas that we had with the sketches. Which may be why it's also some of the material of the sketches it's actually less important, because it's kind of like the songs have already covered the main aspect of it, and the sketch is there to emphasise that or fill in a little bit of detail that we maybe think should be there but we might have missed in a song. So yeah, I think the songs have mainly stayed how I wanted them. The whole production is basically, for this year, has been exactly what I envisaged it being, and like people are having fun time watching the show and being in the show, and it's a great time. You're just in a Edinburgh market where there's so many other shows, and it's exhausting promoting your own show. But the actual production, yes, you have to do. But the actual production itself, I'm very pleased with for this year.
So we've touched on the stuff that you have to do for a show, which is not just the show. And before we even started recording, you were talking about this. But yes, you have got to get the advertising out there. Unless you sell out immediately, and who does that? Very few. Then you've got to go out there on the mile, and rain and sun, and the weather's been, it's been quite interesting here. We've had wind as well this week.
It's probably about 50-50 chance of rain, I think, which is one of the songs.
But I was just wondering, do you find yourself now looking at the peripheral stuff with half an eye to looking for new material?
Yes, a little bit. I think there's certain elements of, this is my first show, so I was saying I played piano for shows here, about 5 different Fringes, but it's my first show I've been producing, and that's a whole new view on the festival. Waking up every morning looking at your pre-sales for tickets, and again I've chatted to some other people who are kind of self-producing their stuff, and there's a whole new bunch of stresses that come with the producing element of it, and all the marketing and the posters and flyering. You get a lot of people who are flyering for companies and for other people's shows rather than for their own show, and they're a whole group of people who I've chatted to many of them, and they live in Edinburgh. They might be students, or they might be kind of just finished school. It's a summer job, and you realise that's actually a whole new group of people that maybe you missed out, who are working the festival in a different way, there's lots of potential new material there, and I mean at the minute there's so many things I'd love to do, but because I'm producing I have got the time. For instance, we'd love to record a cast recording of the show just to get some of the songs out there, again, you're like trying to find the time during Edinburgh where everyone else is doing more than one show a day to kind of get round a mic and record some bits and bobs. Yeah, we might get a couple of songs done by the end of the run if we're lucky. But again, that's why we've had some really interesting producers in to watch the show, which is again part of my aim for this year, which is brilliant to take it forward into future years, and hopefully next time when there's a little bit more kind of money and marketing behind things, these are all things you can think about. But it's just getting off the ground this year, really. So.
Well, let's talk about that then. What is your aspiration for this show, and what is the aspiration for you in other areas? Because you're a tremendously talented man. You're not just looking at this show.
Yeah,
Let's do the show first.
Yeah, the show. Well, for the show itself, again, I've been here for a while. I kind of know there's certain staple shows that people have heard of, such as Showstopper, Out of the Blue. My brother was in Out of the Blue back in a few years ago, and things like that. And there's shows that people basically turn up to the Fringe and they'll always book that show, and then they're looking for other things to fill their time. And what I'd love is that the Ed Fringe Musical Revue, or whatever, who knows, maybe it'll change name in future years.
Review for musicals.
Becomes a show that people turn up and they always book that show because it's great fun, and they know you can bring friends who've never been before, they have a good night, and then they fill in other things, the new maybe things into their timetable around that. And it won't happen in 1 year, but it will be a development kind of process, and it takes time to build up. You realise that Showstopper's been going for like 12 to 15 years, and then suddenly in the last couple of years they won the Olivier Award, and I'm quite lucky to be friends with Dylan Emery, who's the narrator.
I also know Dylan. I've interviewed him a couple of times.
Do a little bit of improv piano. So he's like, we came here first. We were in a lot smaller venue, and it's taken time to build up. But it has got there, and it's amazing now to see them in the Pleasance Grand, which is like 700, 800 seats.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. So I think that's my idea for this show, and it's so that I have I guess on a personal level, have a connection to Edinburgh, have a reason to come here, whether I'm playing for it or just having it on. I feel that I have a connection to the city, partly because I've been here lots of times. I've met my girlfriend here. Quite. It's an amazing place during the summer. So
it's certainly going in the memoirs when you write them.
It is. It's still, it's had to start somewhere. On a personal level, outside this project, so I've been doing lots of MD work out in London for quite a few years now. Quite a cool project that we've been working on. I'm the music director for a composer called Trisha Ward, and so I had to get a train down to Darlington the other day to a country house somewhere to record a Netflix pilot. So they're doing. She's written the music for and producing a pilot for Netflix. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk the name of the show, but we had some. Again, you'll go from out of the Fringe bubble, and you're suddenly seeing kind of A-list actors who've come from Hollywood and from other places, and you're kind of waving your arms, conducting them, doing some songs on a film set. And again, you go from the sublime to the ridiculous. You go from a kind of small room up above a church where you're kind of self-producing, trying to put your own work out, to work on someone else's work who's obviously more established. But again, the same fundamentals are there. It's that you're still working with people, and you're still working with music and trying to kind of develop new, exciting work. And then in London, I've started writing a new show with my very good friend and composer Tim Gilvin, who won the SNS award a few years ago for his show Stay Awake Jake. So we've just started developing a new show which is all about pub quiz in a small village and about gentrification. So basically we both grew up in small towns outside of London. We're basically talking about how as the transport links and London grows, the impact of London grows further and further afield, how they kind of it sucks the life out of some of these small towns, and everyone everywhere becomes a kind of satellite town of London, and how like a group of people decide to take this on through the form of pub quiz team. Which again is something close to our hearts. I couldn't possibly say how we came to that decision. But we've written a show together before, which is called Gap Year, which was all about, again, when we just finished being students, we wrote a show about going on a gap year, which is still a great show, and it's nice to work with people you know really well.
You write from experience, I think.
Yeah, I think it's very important to do that, unless you're writing something kind of completely epic or it's based on a story that you know very well and you kind of feel vested in the story. Kind of write what you know. I mean, that's what stand-ups do, isn't it? It's the same with all these things. It's kind of you get lots of like kind of millennial stand-ups talking about not having any money and struggling to pay rent. And it's because that's what they're experiencing. So there's lots of exciting projects on the go. Again, I tend to do pantomime. There's an element of pantomime in Ed Fringe, the musical review, because I just love it's the audience reaction, and it's the kind of...
You're never going to get anything more vibrant than panto back and forth and full four breaking, are you? So
exactly. So I still love playing for panto every year. You know, people are like, oh, you spend all your Christmas hidden away in a dark room. I was like, that's the time when I like doing it, because I get to communicate with the audience and communicate with the actors. Whereas if you're in a pit band, it's a slightly different thing. So
you're a man of great versatility, and there are plenty of things you can do. So forgive me, do you have contact details that you're prepared to, do you have a website? How can people get in contact with you?
I do have a website. Again, all my personal details are on there. I don't know whether that's a good thing or not, but it's patrickstockbridge.co.uk. And that's got information about projects that are going on at the minute and future things. When I update, there's a few demos on there of previous things that I've done. Again, on Twitter and Facebook, you can probably just search my name on Facebook and Twitter if you want to have a chat. I love doing new projects and working with different people, especially kind of book writer, lyricist people. I like writing lyrics to a point, but if I find someone who's really passionate writing book rights and lyricists, I'm always interested in developing new work. And it's just London is a brilliant place to be based, and I'm in London, but there's a lot of kind of, whereas Edinburgh, it's very easy to chat to everyone because it's a small city. London is a very big city, and I think you can feel kind of tracking down people with your similar interests to you quite difficult sometimes. So
it's a trade fair, really.
It is
something Sarah Louise Young taught me, actually.
It is. You've got to talk about yourself over and over and over again every day, but you also meet other people like-minded who you never would have met before if you hadn't come here.
It's a wonderful place to make contacts, friends, and indeed, as you say, make the occasional relationship.
Completely. I mean, I was walking down the street the other. I'm going to be playing piano for an improvised musical show called Notflix, which is on at the Guild Balloon. They've got lots of advertising everywhere. But again, that came from, I've played for them once before a long time ago, but we're just walking around and their pianist was ill, and you suddenly feel that that's the way it works in Edinburgh because everyone's in the same place. So you go back in time to maybe university days where everyone lived in a much smaller kind of area, whereas London you can very easily get lost. So.
And indeed, they often tell you to.
Yeah, enjoy yourself. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Patrick. That's been a fascinating conversation. I will tell you, I think your show is fantastic. I laughed, I enjoyed it. I love the pace of it, I love the feel of it, I love the music. I think it's a great show, and I hope there will be future iterations because you can count me in for regular viewing, frankly. So, good luck for the future, and I look forward to hearing from you again.
That would be amazing.
Come play in my courtyard or hide in my dome. You'll spot some celebrities, but leave them alone. Look at my funky artwork with my kooky cartoons. All my signposts will leave you lost like a bunch of buffoons. I can bring you laughter on a cloudy day. My name is Pleasance, and I'm here to lead the way. We are the superhero venue team, here to cash in on your dreams. Queues for miles around the block to see a varied theatre stock. Be careful not to binge or face the guardians of the fringe. We've blitzed all the billboards
From the mile to the mound
All the names want to grace the stage
of the biggest halls in town,
with our own special brochure.
which excludes all the crap
We will buy a
or wipe out the competition on the whole Midlothian map. If you score a hit with us, you'll be a hero for the day. But with our gilded balloon,
our assembly pass.
there comes a price to pay.
We are the superhero venue team, here to cash in on your dreams.
3 in 1 and 1 in 3, the corporate kings of comedy. All the other venues whinge. We're the guardians of the fringe.
Underbelly, 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 underbelly. Follow the cow. Underbelly, underbelly,
Love that
underbelly. Follow the cow. Underbelly, underbelly,
Moo.
Love that underbelly. Yo, follow the cow, follow the cow, follow the cow.
Bedlam, Sweet and the Space, move the hell out our way. Summer Hall and the Caves have a price on their heads. And the venues at sea, we will make sure they're crushed. Don't get us started on the free fringe.
We will tread them into the dust. Tread them into the dust. Into the dust. We are the superhero venue team, here to cash in on your dreams. The festival is ours to guide. Shows that live and duds that die. You will snort and gag and cringe. We're the guardians of the fringe.
Pokemon.
And there we are. There's another song from Patrick Stockbridge's excellent Ed Fringe the Musical called Guardians of the Fringe. And as you probably will have gathered, it's the song we mentioned in the conversation about the way that the venues available for most of the shows at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe are controlled by a limited number of companies. It was lovely talking to Patrick about his show Ed Fringe the Musical. Such a good idea, so very nicely done. I'm sorry to say that it isn't on at the festival again this year, but I hope it will be in the future, because as he says, it would be a great show to revive on an annual basis to reflect all the little changes that occur to the main Edinburgh experience. To find out more about Patrick, go to his website, patrickstockbridge.co.uk. And perhaps you'd like to go along to the Edinburgh Festival Fringe this year. I would, and indeed I will. It's on between the 2nd to the 26th of August in Edinburgh. And if you want to find out more or see what's on, go along to edfringe.com, which is a one-stop shop for pretty much everything to do with the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. Well, do join me again in future episodes of Musical Talk over the next few weeks and months, when we'll be talking about that great flowering of creativity that you can see and experience at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe this year. And of course, the emphasis will, as always for Musical Talk, and why would it not be about musical theatre. And so, as fellow travellers in that particular world, I hope you're looking forward to it as much as I am. But for the time being, it's time to go. I'm going to borrow a phrase from the late, great Desmond Carrington, who lived in Scotland, who would always finish his very excellent radio programmes with, "Bye just now." There, I did it. This episode of Musical Talk edited and presented by Thos Ribbits. Copyright Musical Talk 2019, except for the songs where the copyright remains with Patrick Stockbridge. And my thanks go to Patrick for allowing me to play his songs in this episode. To find out more about the world of Musical Talk and listen to past episodes, go along to our website www.musicaltalk.co.uk or subscribe to us on iTunes and follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can, at Musical Talk Thos. Thank you. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, very happy with it.
I was going to give you some stars.
I'm talked out now.
Yeah.
Like, ooh. You know when you're like, I've literally been talking for 45 minutes. That's amazing.
You're very good at it, though. You're good copy.
You're good.
I hope it was a satisfactory conversation.
Yeah, well, it's just nice to talk about the show a bit and talk about other things, and you don't
always get a chance.
Well, again, you just have the same bloody pitch that you have to do to everyone because you've got 20 seconds to get. So it's nice.
Fancy sing show.
We're having a lovely time. That's the gist, and it's exhausting. I was with my girlfriend's parents yesterday,
having a sit down.
And we're just like having a drink after the show, and they're like, "Patrick looks tired. Like, I'm a very hyperactive individual, as you may have guessed." Yes, and I'm, slowly crashing. But we've got another week to go.
But you'll be all right, won't you? Your health is
Edinburgh it is. At least I don't have to sing. I think that's the cast are doing amazing. If you think Emily does 3 shows a day where they're all that energy, and they're like, not all 3. She does Shakespeare for breakfast and Dickens for dinner and our show, and she's not singing all the way through the other ones, but she's speaking at and she was out last night. She was like, I'm impressed with myself at my vocal health. I was like, good, well done. Because
it comes a point when you think, yeah, absolutely. Presumably it's the day after you get back to wherever people live. You
just crash out. I'm going on holiday for a week after this.
Yeah.
Yes, I need
to
to
do a bit of lying down.
Yes, just reading and just getting out of headspace.